Following the recent flare-up of violence between Israel and the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, the regime and resistance movement Hamas have reached a deal to return to the 2014 post-war ceasefire. Based on the deal, Israel had agreed to open crossings on the Gaza border, allow humanitarian aid and construction materials to enter Gaza, and extend the permitted fishing zone to 6 miles off the coast of Gaza. Israel didn't keep its end of the bargain, and the two sides have frequently engaged in violence since. Just recently, Israeli forces killed scores of Palestinians during weeks of protests called the Great March of Return. But if Israel is so worried about its security, then why didn't it keep its end of the deal in 2014 and continue the siege on Gaza, which is now a decade old?
Israel is determined to keep punishing the Palestinians in Gaza for their choice of government. Whatever people think of Hamas, at the end of the day, it was elected in free elections. But what Israel is doing is continuing with the siege because it wants to see the end of Hamas.
Fast forward to 2018, late May, and again more violence when Hamas responded to attacks carried out on Gaza by the Israelis. The violence prompted an emergency session of the UN Security Council, called by Israel's #1 ally, the US.
The United States called this meeting today to talk about the dangerous and destructive activities of the terrorist organization Hamas in the Gaza Strip.
It will continue to be.
The Palestinian envoy to the UN fired back, mincing no words when it came to the criticism of the international community's indifference when it comes to Israeli crimes.
It is inexcusable for the international community to continue standing idly by, expressing only regret, yet failing to act, even as the rights, safety, well-being and dignity of our people continue to be so grossly and systematically violated, amounting to war crimes and crimes against humanity.
The US motion was blocked by Kuwait, which blamed the violence on Israel's ongoing occupation of Palestinian lands. At the end of the day, another deadlock at the Security Council. The UN Special Envoy for the Middle East had stark warnings in case nothing is done to resolve the situation.
This latest round of attacks is a warning. It is a warning to all of us how close to the brink of war we are every single day.
Kuwait has put forth a draft resolution at the Security Council calling for the protection of Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. A vote on the measure was postponed in the final hours as member states tried to hammer out the final text. The US has already said it will veto the resolution no matter what.
What we keep hearing, as we did in the United Nations Security Council recently from the Americans and others, is that Israel is entitled to self-defense. It is not entitled to self-defense until there is peace between an independent Palestinian state and Israel, or another form of political resolution that both sides accept.
As the Egyptian brokered ceasefire was being discussed, a senior Israeli minister, the Minister of Energy, called for the total destruction of Gaza. Yuval Steinitz has been quoted as saying, "I do not rule out the possibility of conquering Gaza and destroying it once and for all." But he's not the only Israeli official to make genocidal remarks against Palestinians. Here's a Facebook post by Israeli Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked, which has now been conveniently deleted. In the post, she called for the murder of Palestinian mothers who give birth to, quote, "little snakes." But do these officials represent the sentiments prevailing in Israeli society?
So unfortunately, it is a reflection of Israeli society, but it is the government, or rather the political parties that the Israeli society is picking, that are setting this kind of genocidal strategy.
And until Israeli officials start treating Palestinians as dignified human beings who have a right to self-determination and a homeland of their own, merely agreeing to a ceasefire will not do.